Welcome back to the BATTASS Podcast, the Batman the Animated Series show podcast, where we talk about all things Batman the Animated Series. My name's Clay McCormack, and with me is
Sean Murphy.
And today we will be talking about the episodes See No Evil and Beware the Grey Ghost. But before we get into that,
Oh yeah.
as teased in the last episode, my co-host Sean Murphy would like to editorialize on the subject of hentai.
Yeah.
So take it away.
Well, I don't have a rant per se, and I always call it hentai instead of hentai. So if I screw up the language, then I apologize. And let me start by saying I'm very fascinated by hentai, not to jerk off to, and I'm not judging people who do. Like, I have friends who are furries and who probably love that shit. So if that's your thing, then whatever blows your hair back. But I'm with regular porn,
making friends on the Batman Podcast.
Regular porn can be shot with three people making a mistake for an evening. Guy with camera, girl, boyfriend. Like, porn accidentally gets filmed when people are drunk sometimes. Mm-hmm. There's almost no thought put into it.
Right.
But then you've got the phenomenon of hentai, and you've got like industries and people that commute to work to do it, and 401ks and slush funds and like editing and getting your pitching porn ideas to people in small rooms. I mean, it's just I want to investigate. I want to like learn about how it gets made, who these people are, because it's got to be really complicated, and I bet it would be really fascinating. Like, for example, some of it is so well animated. Like, there has to be the guy, the master of like the semen animation team. Like, his semen, it's not just water. He knows it's not water, honey. It's sticky. It sticks to everything. Mm-hmm. It's a mess. He's got to have like years of experience, and I bet he could lay out for you in a PowerPoint presentation why his semen animation is the best. And I bet there's even like industry parties where like his team gets there fashionably late, and all the other semen teams are like, oh, look at those guys. Like, they think they're so cool because they animate semen. Like, what is his bad day like?
He's got his own After Effects plugin that you can just use to make the semen that he designed.
Yeah. I mean, what is his bad day at work, after work like? Like, he gets home late, and his wife is like, making dinner, and he's like, don't even get me fucking started today. Fucking boss's son comes in. I don't like nepotism. Telling me that I went too far in the last scene. Like, giving me shit because I added some stuff. You know what he wanted? He wanted, just the semen to hit her in the head. You know what I did? I had to hit her in the back of the wall, and then in the back of her hair. Like, we animated it into her hair. Like, no one fucking does that anymore, because you know why? We take pride in what we do. You don't even know what salmon ricochet is until we invented it.
He starts talking to me about physics. You want to talk about physics?
People think it's water. It's not water. Like, and she's like, tries to take away his meal. He's like, I'm not done eating yet.
I know.
Like, that guy has to be out there, and I want to meet him.
Yeah, and I mean, think about the amount of time that they put into animating movies, like, generally. Like, think about how much time goes between animating Pixar movies.
Yeah.
But, after waiting 5 years, you get, Nemo getting anally raped by a tentacle monster.
Oh, yeah. And then, I don't even want to go down the tentacle road, because that's just another black hole. But, I mean, I
literally.
The other thing is, like, they blur out half of it, too, because of laws in Japan. Mm-hmm. And to go all that way to animate, like, the perfect clit, and then to have it all pixelated at the last minute, must just fucking kill you. It must make you want to quit and go back to the rice fields. I don't know, man.
That's not even to speak to the comic book industry based on the same stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you ever meet someone that like cares about their hobby too much and they can't even laugh about it? Like, a guy who brews beer, and you're like, why don't you do triple? I don't know, whatever dumb beer joke you and I could think of, and he doesn't even know to like laugh politely. He's like, actually, people think IPAs are easy to make, but they don't understand. Like, the guy who cannot laugh at his own career.
Right.
That's what the like semen animation guy must be like. I bet.
You gotta go to work in a suit every day with a briefcase full of reference photos you gotta use.
Yeah. Exactly. And like, when his team is referencing, quote unquote, what does a referencing meeting look like? And what does a meeting of a bunch of dudes just jerking off look like?
It's like how Disney used to bring in lions so all their animators could sketch the lions so they could know how the lions know what they look like. It's very similar to that, only the lions do different stuff.
So, oh man, so you're telling me that they find models, bring them into the office.
They find lions, bring them into the office. And then the guy who shows up last has to do the dirty work.
Oh, yeah. I want to see that Craigslist ad, like, looking for models. Doesn't have to be attractive. I mean, they don't even need human beings. They can just get a statue with a wig and just do whatever to it, slap it with tentacles and just, I don't know, hit it with glue guns. I have no idea.
I feel like there's a documentary in here somewhere that you need to finance and or produce.
That's what I'm talking about. I mean, I know that I'm just mouthing off and joking around, but there's got to be a really interesting documentary about this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Have you seen that tickle documentary? About the competitive tickling?
No.
Oh, you want to see some fucked up shit.
That's the kind of thing I'm talking about.
Yeah. That's a great one. It's weird, man.
My someone in my family is a furry, and he came out to me as a furry, which I'm flattered by, but he asked me where he's supposed to go for more furry information, because I work in comics, and I'm supposed to know that. Yeah. Uh-huh. And I'm like, no, man, I have no idea. Like, there's got to be a documentary or something about it, right? And there isn't. And it's sad that there isn't, because I feel like with all the Brony documentaries coming out, why wouldn't this be right up your alley?
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that one.
I mean, what is it about comic people where you're supposed to come like pre-updated with furry knowledge?
Yep. No, it's I've noticed that too. I've had when we moved into our place, we had my girlfriend's mother had her interior decorator come over and look at our place, and I had already put up a bunch of my artwork.
Right.
And she was looking around, and she was like, "Oh yeah, my nephew does very similar stuff to you. He does like really erotic dark drawings." And I was like, okay. I don't know what my Batman drawings told you that I was into that, but yeah. We all know the same people, I guess.
That's so weird that they see a green light. I met my landlord once in Brooklyn, and he saw one drawing I did, and then he started to tell me about how he and his brother were big into Heavy Metal magazine. Mm-hmm. And so that I get. But then he tells me about how they used heavy metal artwork to paint the side of a van of their pickle company to help sell vegetables throughout Brooklyn.
That sounds pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It went off the deep end pretty quick, but he's my landlord, so I'm not gonna give him any shit.
Yeah, it's like how, you know, when you go to a big school, like say you go to Duke and you tell someone, "Oh yeah, I went to Duke," and they go, "Oh, do you know Chris?" It's like, I don't know Chris. It's a big school. Right.
Or when like black people joke around to us.
And we'll be moving on to Batman.
No. Who is it? Kevin Hart had a joke about, oh yeah, black people, like we all have meetings, we all hang out together, like we all know each other. That's right, because there's only 4 of us, and kind of making fun of the impression that white people have about black people.
I don't have a drink, so I can't sip it loudly, unfortunately.
That wasn't that's
no. I know. I'm just giving you shit.
Blame Chris Hart, not me. All right, let's get into this.
We'll be talking about, the first episode we'll be talking about today is See No Evil. Actually, we probably should have used the hentai rant as a way to work into Beware the Grey Ghosts, because there was some lead in there.
We can't go from hentai to talking about a broken family and estranged father with a disappearing complex.
But I think that's how most hentai artists start. So, See No Evil, which was directed by Dan Reba and Martin Pascoe, and in which Lloyd Eddie Ventrix is on the verge of losing his daughter Kimberly to his ex-wife, Helen, due to his past as a con artist. Determined not to lose Kimberly, Ventrix dons a suit stolen from where he used to work while on parole, which grants the user invisibility but also becomes highly toxic and poses as Kimberly's imaginary friend Mojo while stealing jewelry for her. Fun piece of trivia here. The Kimberly, the girl's voice,
yes, I saw this.
Yeah, Elizabeth Moss from Mad Men.
So I discovered this 10 minutes ago, and I was stunned, of course. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wait a minute, because she sounds really young, and this must have been 1992.
Yeah, it was 25 years ago at this point.
So she would be like 11, but she sounds like a 6-year-old.
Mm-hmm. That's
Okay.
That's acting, man.
Oh, is that what that is? Okay, thank you.
Acting.
Acting.
So yeah, this was interesting because like I've said before, I generally don't care much for these throwaway one-off villain episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I actually kind of like this one. There was not much to the story. It was pretty simple, but I thought it was really kind of cool. The invisibility stuff that they were doing was cool. The invisibility car chase was really cool.
Yeah.
And it started off really creepy. And I got
Yeah.
that for opening scene where it's the girl talking to the disembodied voice and the floating doll.
Right.
That got me into it because I was like, yeah, there's nothing I like to see but a really, vulnerable young girl in a room.
Well, where's my drink of water to take? Yeah, man, I totally agree. And I think that the animation exercises that they got to play with, like playing with an invisible man. Okay, so you have Batman being punched by nothing. So
Yep.
you get to draw Batman reacting. You get to draw a guy, walking through cement and his voice echoing, and the half of a car, but the other half is invisible. And there's some really great challenges that they tackled that I thought were really, really great.
Yeah, I've always wondered with that stuff if whether or not having an episode of a TV show, or in this case a cartoon TV show, where your character is invisible, is that more work or is that less work?
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, well, in a cartoon, if you're drawing Batman getting punched by an invisible person, you only have to draw half the fight.
Right.
So theoretically, it would be faster. But yeah, it is the stuff that they do, especially with the car later, where the car, the front half of the car shows up and all the paint gets blasted off of it. That stuff was really cool.
Yeah. I love the gag too, where they go by these two guys and they're like, "I didn't know Batman could fly."
Yeah.
Yeah, that especially an abandoned drive-in theater. I'm always a sucker for that setting.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's just a really cool. I mean, there's nothing to that setting. It's just a screen and a big open nothing.
Right.
You know?
But yeah, and I bet we could go on for an hour, but I totally agree. But I love those settings. Maybe because there's a lot of those in New England, but it also harkens back to an entertainment system that failed, and now it's just rotting.
Right. Yeah. It does always work for some reason. Back to the Future 3, obviously, Heat. There's a great scene at an old drive-in. It always works as a setting. I'm not sure why.
Yeah. I think that the implication there of it's like an abandoned carnival in a way. With less stuff, Well, a lot of those abandoned photos you see online. A lot of good ones I think are abandoned drive-in.
Yeah, abandoned
theaters.
stuff in general is just great. Great setting.
It's also like abandoned Americana. It was a time where we thought that America was great, or not to get into politics. And there's also that implication when I think about abandoned drive-ins.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way, actually. But yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of that stuff it's kind of the dark side of nostalgia, almost.
Yeah.
Because instead, where you've got an episode like the one we're about to watch, where it's a very positive look at nostalgia,
Right.
You get into that stuff where you see what time is actually doing to these things that you valued so highly when you were a kid.
Right. And I think the symbolic, maybe just thinking out loud, the symbolic reason why it was there was, okay, so the action was taking place in a poor neighborhood where they lived. They run outside, so there's got to be a poor something that they battle in. So you could make it anything, but they chose to make it an abandoned drive-in theater where families used to come and have fun, but there are no families there anymore. I mean, you can kind of see the obvious parallels that they're drawing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think my standout for this episode is the sequence at the I can't even remember what the hell it was, an auction. No, at the bank. The bank.
Right.
Where they spend a lot of time on one guard and how much he has to pee. And there's a really because what's his name? The bad guy Ventrix goes into the men's room to put on his invisibility thing, and after he goes in, the guard comes over and tries the handle, but it's locked. And then once everything starts going down, Bruce Wayne runs in there to change into Batman, and the guard completely ignores the commotion happening and decides that, well, this is probably the best time to pee. And he goes over and he jiggles the handle and it's locked again. And they cut to a close-up of him biting his lower lip, giving this face where he's like, oh, God.
Well, to quote Jurassic Park, when you gotta go, you gotta go.
And then Batman hits him in the face with a door. Which, that was, that scene was interesting because they show Batman or Bruce Wayne changing into Batman in a bathroom like Superman.
Right.
Which is not really common for Batman.
No.
And I don't know about you, but I don't personally care for it when they treat Batman like Superman in that way. I like him a lot more. I'm a big fan of the Bruce Wayne is stuck as Bruce Wayne kind of thing because there's too many people around or whatever.
Right.
I don't know about you.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, there are a couple of scenes where Bruce is in a car, puts on a costume in the backseat, and like batarangs himself out, or grappling hook, uses the grappling hook to jump out the roof. I thought that stuff was cool, but
that's a little bit. I'm okay with that because it's like he's in his own, he's in his own car and he's got that shit with him. This, the way they do it here implies that he's just wearing the Batman thing under his suit. And I just always like the situations when you've got Bruce Wayne in a very public setting and he should. It's a situation that Batman should address, but he can't because he can't obviously give up his secret identity.
To think of this, if they tried this in the movies, Christian Bale's wearing that bulky ass costume underneath a very tightly fit European cut suit.
Yeah,
it's like, what do you? He's like, I bet he looks like he's shoplifting a bunch of Transformers. Yeah, I guess
he's just been working out, man.
Yeah. Oh man, I gotta say though, I love the animation in this episode.
Yeah, it's
good.
I
am surprised that they would use this studio, whichever animation studio it was, which obviously was very good. It must have been expensive, on a story that does not have a major villain in it. I love this episode, but it's not a blockbuster type of. You know what I mean? It's not
right.
Yeah.
It's a one-off villain in a story that doesn't really have a lot of it's not really a character thing for Batman. It's just a pretty standard villain of the week type thing, but it's they do a really great job on it. And they avoid having the Invisible Guy have a bunch of henchmen, which I really appreciated.
Right.
This is a character that's post it's post Rat King or whatever that guy was called, the underground guy, where they've kind of figured out how to inject stuff you care about into these one-off characters. Like I guess what I'm saying, it's like a post Heart of Ice kind of approach where they're like, all right, well, just because this guy is one-off, we don't have to just make him a throwaway that has kind of a dumb story.
Yeah.
And what I liked about this one is it actually doesn't involve Batman directly. Like a lot of those other ones, Batman is he ends up with one of the kids at his house, or he's involved personally on some level. Yeah. But in this one, he's just straight up solving the crime. Right. And I like that a lot. And they give all of the character stuff to Ventrix and his family. I thought that was good.
Yeah, I mean, if I was on the team to animate, I would want to be on this kind of episode because it's something that it would be overlooked, but if you really could do something great with it. Because I feel like if you wanted to work on the flashy episodes that involve the Joker, well, everyone's going to want to do those, and it's going to be every too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. But stuff like this, even if it was just a comic, like what seems mundane and dull really has a lot of great stuff in it. Like how often do you see a good animation team tackle a man and his ex-wife fighting in a grocery store? Right. It's just stuff like that you don't usually get, which I think is great.
Yeah, definitely. This one, they definitely brought their A game for it. I don't know if it was just because they were that stuff that was the quieter stuff was just had some residual grease on it because of how much fun they were doing the cool stuff or what. But it was the scene in the drive-in where it's just where Ventrix tries to make an appeal to his daughter by pulling off the mask of his invisibility suit, so he's
Yeah.
just a floating head.
Well, how did he think that was gonna make it better?
I don't know. I mean,
And by the way, he looks like fucking Howdy Doody.
yeah, he's got a weird skin problem too, doesn't
Yeah, he looks like the Mad Libs guy come to life.
Yeah, they do say that the chemicals in the suit make you go insane, so maybe he just wasn't thinking straight when he decided to appear as a floating head to his daughter.
You just reminded me that the scene where they're talking about the invisibility cloak and he's taking the wand, the cattle prod, and showing Batman how it works, and all this great science, and like, oh, this is all nifty. And then the final line is, oh, by the way, it's toxic after a while.
Yeah, and it makes you go crazy.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure why that would happen, but okay.
Yeah. That actually that reminded me of the scene in Batman Begins where Lucius Fox is showing him how the gliding cape works.
Totally.
Which then reminded me that this, I believe, is the first Lucius Fox episode.
Oh.
He's in it very briefly, as when Bruce Wayne's being shown around the factory there, he makes some comment to Lucius to do blah 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 or something like that.
Huh, cool.
And it's interesting because I didn't know Lucius Fox as a character before the cartoon.
Mm-hmm. Same.
And even after the cartoon, I never really thought of him as a big, an important character.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was is it just the Nolan movies that made Lucius such a big deal? Because in the cartoon, I know he knows that Bruce is Batman and et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But he never was a mainstay of the mythology to me.
I don't know, and I think that people listening to this are probably screaming at us right now.
Yeah, I know. I should have looked it up.
If we read any, but I agree with you. I didn't know Lucius Fox was that important. I knew he was a buddy of Bruce's that worked at his job. I didn't know that he was a stand-in for Bruce. The cartoon covered him, but there was never that episode where it was clear what the hierarchy was.
Yeah. It says it here that he's been around since 1979.
Okay.
Yeah, and it says he's one of Bruce Wayne's closest allies, et cetera, et cetera. So
right.
I think it's one of those characters. If I had to guess,
yeah,
I think he's probably one of those characters who became more important as they found a use for him.
Right.
And probably became more important because of the show, if I had to guess.
Right.
But I could be underselling the importance of Lucius Fox in the comics. I don't know.
Well, when you cast what's his face?
Morgan Freeman.
Yeah. I mean, that's now he's part of the history books for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to change topics, but go ahead.
No, that's fine. I got nothing real else to say. So.
I was going to say part of the reason why. So that scene where they're taking the wand and making the thing disappear.
Yep.
I noticed they had 3 different colors for gray. So for example, if you animate a face, you use flesh. And then maybe you use dark flesh for around the eyes. So you have two different colors for that's how basic animation works, obviously. But when they add a third, like a shine to the nose or a shine to the brow, that's when I think animation really pops. And I noticed in this episode, they do that a lot, and they do it really well.
Yeah.
And I know that it's time-consuming to try to animate in 3 colors per layer, or however you want to say that. But I noticed that a lot of the great Batman episode animation does like 3-color animation, if you want to call it that. And the ones that kind of fall flat, there is some. It's nice when it's 2 colors, but it is a little flatter, and you do notice when that like glimmer on the nose or on the locket, I think at one point, or on the wand, like that really to me made it like a print that I would actually print out and look at because it was just so beautiful.
Right. Yeah. I mean that 3rd color really does make things pop. And it seems as we're going through these that it's like they must have on the board.
Right.
Pointed out which episodes they need to lean into a little bit more.
Yeah. I don't know. A single mom. Let's do 3rd color popping.
Yeah, which is surprising. Like this, like you said, this is a surprising episode that they would, bring out the A-team for.
Yeah. Right.
Unless, maybe it's a complete toss-up and it's just the A-team just ended up getting this episode. I don't know.
Please use the A-team theme to cut between this first part of this podcast and the second part. What did you think about the ending? So
I'm trying to remember exactly what it is.
The last scene is the little girl talking.
Oh yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good bookend from the beginning, and
right.
It's for a second I thought she was going to be talking to her dad again.
Yeah.
So it was nice that it was Batman, but it was also nice that it was still kind of like talking to an imaginary friend kind of thing. I thought it was good. What about you?
Oh yeah, I really loved it. I love the idea that Batman cares about kids.
Yeah.
And as such a dark character, to have him check in on a buddy of his, maybe this is the last time he'll ever see her. Maybe he'll check in on her once a year. I really like that human side of Batman, and I feel like those moments are few and far between sometimes. Mm-hmm. And we forget like how human the character can be, One thing I did ask, or was wondering though, is when her mom, when she says her mom, like, oh, I'm just talking to Batman. When her mom's like, okay, dear. Do you think her mom actually sincerely knew that Batman was just out the window, or do you think her daughter was just pretending again? Because she has no reason to pretend at this point.
That's true. She doesn't. I'm gonna say she probably thought her daughter was pretending.
Okay. But wouldn't you want to check after your weird week with Batman? Wouldn't you want to close the window?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, regardless, I think you're gonna err on the side of maybe let's not leave this window open.
Right.
But yeah, I think the way they played it was her kind of being like, up, she's doing it again, kind of thing. Even though before she wasn't, But it actually reminded me. Do you remember? There's a scene in the first Christopher Reeve Superman movie, where Superman saves a cat out of a tree, and gives it to this little girl, and then flies away, and she goes into her house, and you hear an audio. You don't see it. You hear the audio of the girl telling her mother that Superman flew down out of the sky and got the cat out of the tree. Yeah. And then you hear the mother slap the kid.
Yeah. Superman's hearing. Hello, why don't you do a Yui?
Yeah. To this day that scene really weirds me out. But hey, it was a different time, I guess.
You know what? I am Superman. I am fully capable of coming and saving your cat. But if your mom starts hitting you, you're on your own, kid. I mean, I've got other cats to save.
Oh boy, Superman! What a dick.
Man.
But to what you were saying about Batman caring about kids, I mean, it makes 100% sense that he would care about kids, because his entire character is based off of trauma inflicted on a child.
Right.
So for Batman to be to have a soft spot for kids completely makes sense. I mean, even that's where Robin comes from. That's where all of the Robins come from.
Yeah. We got So speaking of that Robin episode, I feel like I would love to talk about Batman with his relationship with kids and how he can't seem to be a good father figure once they're over 18, basically.
Yeah.
But maybe we should save that for Robin. Yeah. So if you could draw a scene.
Before we get to that.
Okay.
Kind of jumping off of what you were saying about showing Batman's human side. I noticed in this episode that Batman kind of gets taken out by some normies, for lack of a better term, a couple times in this episode.
He's left unconscious.
Yeah, like the first scene with where he confronts Ventrix in the suit. He does the two things that they do every time there's an invisible character in one of these things at the end of the episode. You know what I mean? Like the way that they defeat this guy, Batman does it on the first try, where he throws the gas down so he can see him, and then he covers him in paint so he can see him.
Right.
Theoretically, this episode should end with Ventrix being covered in paint and Batman punching him in the face. But it doesn't, and Ventrix gets the best of him, and he disappears, and then he beats Batman up. And then later on, at the when he's going to investigate the technology, the guy just pushes a bookcase on him and knocks him the fuck out.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that.
How do you feel about where do you think Batman should top out as far as power level goes? Because I feel like since he doesn't have superpowers, but his superpowers, one of his quote unquote superpowers is this stealthiness ninja thing. No, it's real. I was thinking about it because it's like how human do you want your Batman to be?
Oh, I get it. I just the idea of a scientist with a well-placed bookcase can easily defeat Batman, but Joker and his goons cannot.
Yeah, like, do you find that to be,
well,
and, like, do you find that to be out of step with the character, or do you find that to be a nice flaw that he has, that sometimes if he sees something shiny out of the corner of his eye, he'll catch a fist in the face?
I think that he's got bad days.
Mm-hmm.
You ever back out of your driveway? Usually you're really good to look, and then one day there's someone walking by and they stop because you don't see them.
Oh, yeah.
You think,
yeah.
oh man, I'm glad he knew. Like, man, that's not like me.
Right.
Batman, he must have those moments too. I mean, I'd love if after he got toppled by the bookcase, Batman's like, "Fuck, I should have known." Like, oh man, I've just been so distracted lately. You know.
Where did you get that bookcase? Is this from the League of Assassins catalog?
Oh God, who does that voice again?
Pete Holmes.
Yeah. I imagine Batman must kick himself a lot. Like, God fucking damn it. Of course I throw paint at him. The paint's supposed to work, but I didn't know that costume would suck up the paint as well.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to find some water next time.
He was probably thinking about that when he got the bookcase pushed on him. That's why his mind wasn't on his surroundings.
Yeah. Or, being single, or maybe he's just thinking about his mom, or, whatever thoughts he has all day.
Yeah.
Every day.
You have to wonder how he focuses on anything with all the shit going around in his head, probably.
Oh man, you said it much better than I ever could have. Thank you.
You apparently make invisibility cloaks, and I can only also assume ninja bookcases.
That guy was a scientist, right?
Yeah.
He didn't just run out of the lab screaming.
He was also
to protect his
dressed like a
experiment.
mechanic.
Yeah, I thought he was a janitor.
Yeah, me
So I'm
too.
like, all right,
And
a janitor.
he hit him with a fucking monkey wrench.
Yeah, I mean, a janitor has some fight in him. Blue collar guy hasn't seen his kid for a while, sure.
Yeah.
But a scientist from Harvard, I don't think he would have known to push the bookcase.
It could have been a Goodwill Hunting situation because that guy was from the streets.
That's true.
Anyway, so as
How do you
as
like
for
them apples? Sorry.
yeah.
Too late. Sorry.
As for what I would like to draw, I can tell you what I wouldn't like to draw. First of all,
Sure.
I would not like to draw that invisible car chase scene.
Oh, that was my answer. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say I don't want to draw that because I think that would be incredibly difficult to sell in a comic. I don't now you tell me why you'd like to draw it, because I'm curious to hear what you'd say.
I don't know the solution, but I like to tackle difficult problems.
Yeah.
I see art as math. Not to get into it, and I look at something like that. I'm like, that would be hard. I would imagine that I would color it, or I would handle it talking to the colorist a lot.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to do the cheat of like you can kind of see it, you kind of see through it, like Wonder Woman's plane. But I like how the cloak, you see through it wherever it is. Once you tear it away, you can actually see the car and inside the car too. But if you rotated that model, I think that it would fall apart. I think they had to pick their camera angles very carefully in this episode.
Yeah.
How about you?
For me it was I was just trying to wrap my head around it. It's difficult enough to sell a car chase in a comic to begin with,
right? Because
you don't have the benefit of motion, so you really have to figure out how to sell that with a static drawing,
right?
So like imagine I'm just imagining a drawing like a panel of a car taking a turn with Batman on the hood. It's like, all right, I can sell that because you can, the angle the car leans into the turn and the way that his cape's blowing or whatever.
Right.
But now take the car out. So you've just got Batman kind of like weirdly Dutch angled on top of nothing.
Right.
With like smoke behind him. I don't know. That it's
yeah.
It would not be a fun page to draw. I mean, it might be fun once you figure it out, but it would be a tough one to crack.
Yeah. So let me guess yours then.
Okay.
You want to draw two people yelling at each other in a supermarket.
I want to draw the scene with the girl talking to no one in her room.
Ooh.
One person, one room. No, I'm just kidding. The scene that I do want to draw. Actually, that would be a pretty fun scene to draw because you could, depending on how long it was, you could play with the mood a lot. But
yeah, that's a good answer. Yeah.
What I would like to draw, I would actually like to draw the fight at the end when Batman breaks the water tower open.
Right.
That would be real fun to play with, because you can play with the surfaces of the guy and how the rain is hitting him.
Yeah.
So you can still do the invisibility thing, but you can also do some really interesting rain effects and how you're gonna show the form of the body underneath the water coming down. I think that would be, or how the water's spraying off as Batman punches him in the face or something. Right. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, I feel like there's got to be a lot of comics that have had scenes of invisible men in rain before.
I'm sure, yeah.
That's kind of a comic book thing,
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking of like a John Romita panel, I think, or his son. I don't know, something. But yeah, I totally see your point, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's about it for this one. Do you want to rate it?
Yeah. Oh man, I want to give this a 5, but I've been giving so many 5s, it seems unfair. So I'm gonna go to a 4.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the same.
Okay.
I don't think it's an all-timer.
Right.
But I think it's probably, for my money anyway, it's probably the best Villain of the Week episode they've done.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I can't remember if I've said that already.
Yeah, I don't.
But if I have, this is better than the last one that I said that for.
That's the thing, is you and I are recording these a week or two apart, and people are digesting these like you digested Arrow just recently.
Yes.
Yeah. So what was I gonna say? Forget it. I'll think of it later.
It's going to be great once we hit season 5 and we're just telling the same stories over and over again.
Yeah.
And recycling the same jokes.
Yeah. I feel like this would be a great episode to show someone who doesn't really like Batman or who thinks that this show is silly. Yeah. I think this would be like oh my God, like an estranged father, a creepy, encounter at night. I mean, this is a kid's show?
Yeah.
I think this would be a good one to show a doubter who doesn't think that they'd be into this series,
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it would be good in that sense, even more so than one like the Rupert Thorne flashback episode.
Right.
Because that one really kind of leans into the melodramatics of the relationships and stuff like that. This one has just enough, I think, of the family dynamic and to get you interested,
right?
But it wouldn't bore you. Not that I'm saying that episode was boring, but if you're picking an episode to show someone who might not be into Batman, I think this one would be a little bit more friendly for that.
Right.
My only issue with it is I wish, and this would be interesting to bring the character back or something maybe, but I wish that they had leaned into the invisibility thing making you crazy a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe they did it the right amount, because he is acting very unhinged.
Right.
But he's not like the Joker crazy. So maybe they did it just enough. I don't know.
Well, when they threw that the suit makes him sick idea, I felt that it helped his motivation. He was willing to put it on despite his health problems.
Yeah.
He was that desperate to get his daughter back. So this is not a true villain in my eyes. He did have noble causes,
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of, I don't know if you remember the third Spider-Man movie with Sandman.
Oh, yeah, where they totally underutilized Thomas Church.
Yeah. When he
right
was
off the heel of Sideways, too. What the fuck was he thinking, man?
He honestly, going back and watching that movie, it's not a good movie, but the Sandman stuff, not the story so much, because he
does what he can. That guy.
Yeah,
I love Thomas Hayden Church.
He was good, and the effects on Sandman are really good.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that's neither here nor there.
All right. Yeah.
I think that's it on See No Evil. So we're gonna take a quick break, and then we will be back with Beware the Grey Ghost.
Nice.
Okay, next episode up is Beware the Grey Ghost.
Oh, yeah! Finally!
Directed by Boyd Kirkland, story by Dennis O'Flaherty and Tom Ruger, teleplay by Garen Wolfe and Tom Ruger. Lots of people on this one. And in it, Simon Trent, an actor best known for his past role as the Grey Ghost, is on the verge of bankruptcy thanks to his declining career. To save himself, he sells off all of his Grey Ghost merchandise. Immediately afterwards, a series of crimes related to the old show begin to occur. Batman, having himself been inspired partly by the show to become the crime fighter he now is, goes to Trent for help, and they team up to put an end to the crimes and also revive Trent's career.
Here we go. Can I start off this one?
Do it.
And say, this was my favorite when I was a kid, age 12, sitting on the floor watching this cartoon. And then this cartoon showed a kid, age 12, watching Grey Ghost, and that was Batman. Like it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, oh my God, Batman is just like me. I'm
more or less, yeah.
Just well, not as no, but I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. And I was so in love with the Grey Ghost. I was so disappointed that he never existed before this. And this episode hit me when I was hitting my Zorro / Dick Tracy / Rocketeer phase, like pulp hero. I was totally into it, and I was so devastated when nobody seemed to care about the Grey Ghost for fucking years. So fast forward to I did this book called Joe the Barbarian in 2009, and I got to draw all these toys in the background. And because it's a DC book, I got to draw Batman toys. And I was so bored on that book. Sorry, Grant. I was so bored that I just threw out all these DC characters because I wanted to draw Batman and Lobo and all this stuff. And I drew the Grey Ghost. And I any opportunity I had to draw the Grey Ghost, and I felt like I was beating a drum that nobody else cared about. And I feel like it's now finally starting to come back a bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this one for me, it was always one. When I think back about Batman the Animated Series, this is like one of the top 5 that this is one of the episodes that stands out in my mind.
Right.
I don't know why exactly that is. I think it's along the same lines as what you're saying about you're seeing what Batman's into, and he's into the kind of the same thing that you are, sort of.
Totally. I'm going to walk you through why you love this episode, Clay. Don't even worry about it. I watch this episode like twice a year.
It's pretty great. I have always been a sucker for so before we entered this golden age of comic book related cartoons, movies, and general media.
Right.
I was a comic book nerd growing up, and even the faintest mention of comic books in anything, that's what I would grasp onto. Whether it was, a movie. I remember watching a shitty made-for-TV movie called with Antonio Sabato Jr. in it, just because the name of the movie was Wolverine. And I remember buying. I wanted Wolverine work boots just because they had the name Wolverine in them. So I grasped onto anything I could possibly get.
Is that why you were into grunge? Because of that cool character Grunge from Marvel?
No, but it was why I was into heavy metal.
Oh, wait. No, his name was Richter. Shit. Grunge was his image character. Damn it. Sorry to interrupt your train of thought.
There was another one. There's a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie called Sudden Death, which is an amazingly awesome, ridiculous Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. But there's a sequence in it where he kills a guy by putting a big nail inside a fire extinguisher, and then he shoots it at him. Like he puts the tube under his jacket arm, and he shoots the nail out of the fire extinguisher, like out of his wrist. And I flipped out when I saw that because, like, oh my God, it was like Spider-Man. Like he did the Spider-Man motion and shot a guy in the neck. So like that's how much I was.
So you were looking for validation of comics in different forms of media.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right,
absolutely.
I gotcha. Totally gotcha.
And so I think this episode was like a meta exploration of that.
Totally. Yeah.
And I think that's why it stands out so much.
No, Batman is a fucking fanboy. Can you believe it? Like he geeked out. I mean, he geeks out throughout this episode. I mean, his heart is broken when he sees that Simon Trent is just an actor and he's not actually like the Grey Ghost. He doesn't want to believe that he's let down, so he gives him another chance, and he doesn't like confronting him when he thinks he might be the guilty party for a bit. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, he takes him into the I mean, Batman would never just take someone into the Batcave. He's totally geeking out on Trent, which is amazing.
And they touch on a lot of stuff in this episode too, like the idea of never meeting your heroes, that kind of thing.
Right.
Because Batman's clearly disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, imagine how many people are disappointed when they meet Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
What I loved is when I love Trent's little apartment with very dramatic curtains. By the way, he's got an apartment with an altar to himself, a giant window with curtains, a closet full of his old reel-to-reels, and a thinking chair, and that's it. And I fucking love it. And he even has his own great theme music. And I love when he falls asleep after destroying all the shit, and he wakes up and everything's put back together. Do you know what that means? It means Batman came into his apartment while he was sleeping, replaced the glass on the poster, fixed all the action figures, gently put all the shelving back up, and left it there with a little love note, and then left. All while this guy was just unconscious 2 feet away.
He probably tucked him in and left like a nice glass of milk next to the bed.
I bet he went into his cabinet and licked all the spoons. I mean, he's such a fan of Trent.
He was wearing Trent's robe while he was putting everything back.
Guaranteed.
Just touching the surfaces around the house.
He took a few selfies, guaranteed. What's up? Me and Simon, finally. Hashtag Batfan.
Oh, boy. Yeah, it's...
Oh, and when I was a kid, I would have killed to have seen this episode turned into a movie with Clint Eastwood as the Grey Ghost.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this would have been, that would be great. I would love to see this character come back in some form. I'm surprised that they never used him in the comics.
Yeah. Well, they couldn't get the rights to Zorro for this show, so I feel
is that what it is?
Yeah.
Is that why? Huh.
Yeah. So someone can correct me on this in the comment section, but I believe that
which we definitely have.
So DC does not have the rights to Zorro, or if they did, they've lost them, and I'm sure it's changed hands a lot over the years. So the idea of Batman walking out of Zorro, maybe they bought the rights to Zorro for the movie, but as far as the comic books, I'm not sure. And then as far as the animation, I'm definitely not sure. So I think to be safe, they put in a replacement and created the Grey Ghost just because they couldn't use Zorro. That's why.
I think he's. I mean, from his character design and everything, he's a lot closer to like the Shadow, or he actually looks a lot like.
The nose of the Shadow.
Yeah, in the fedora.
Right.
He actually looks a lot like the Golden Age Sandman.
Yeah.
With the purple cape and if you look at this, well, actually no, not the cool Sandman.
No, I like the gas mask one.
Oh, I love the gas mask one, but there's two versions. There's the cool one, which is the Guy Davis one from where he's got like the World War I gas mask.
Okay.
But then there's the older one, the actual one from the 40s, where it's like this weird kind of flat gold mask, and he wears a purple cape on top of a suit. Oh. It's kind of a weird look.
What? Wait a minute. Wasn't he created by Neil Gaiman?
No.
Oh shit. I'm gonna get in trouble now, aren't I?
Oh boy. I hope Karen's not listening to this.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's definitely designed to look like a old pulp hero.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been kind of silly. Personally, I think it would have been kind of silly if you saw Batman and a guy dressed like Zorro in the middle of Gotham City, Art Deco Gotham City.
Whoa! He basically is Zorro, but with gray and with no sword.
And without a pencil thin mustache and a
horse.
Right.
Yeah. But he's got goggles though.
Okay, so the goggles is interesting to me.
Okay, what do you want to say about the goggles?
I would love to know who designed this costume.
Oh, I'm thinking Mike Mignola.
It has to be.
Yeah.
Because the first thing I thought when I saw this was he looks just like Lobster Johnson.
Right.
Which is Lobster Johnson is basically the Grey Ghost.
So Mike Mignola created Hellboy, for those of you who are listening. People that don't get why my Neil Gaiman reference was problematic. Yeah, there's a character named...
You just got them all back by proving you knew who created Hellboy.
Well, so Mike, who I know, had a giant love affair with like big circles on eyes. So when he created Mr. Freeze and maybe this character, I think he just had a go-to design sense where he would just do circular eyes on design elements. And even when he designed Hellboy at first, I think he, instead of being able to design goggles up on someone's forehead, because Mike is looking for circles on faces to design. He was like, oh, what if I just put these up here? And what if, he's red? And hey, maybe these circles, they're not goggles. They're severed horns. Like, I am convinced that was probably where Mike is coming from for a lot of these designs. So it wouldn't shock me at all if this was another Mike design.
Yeah, it looks, it has to be. It would, if it's not him, I don't know. Yeah, it's someone aping his thing, because I don't. Yeah. It screams Mignola.
Yeah. And the thing about circle shapes goggles too is it's such a impersonal, bizarre shape, because you see eyes are not perfect circles, and when you see perfect circle eyes, there's like a dead quality to it, which I love.
And it's always you can never see through them, so it's very blank,
right?
And it's just very unblinking,
right?
And it's exactly. Unnerving,
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, man. I'm wondering, like, what if this had been done with a superhero that looked like Superman? Like, what if Batman was running around with, like, another superhero-y looking dude rather than a pulp hero? If that would, like, hurt this episode at all.
I think it would.
Yeah.
I think it would be disingenuous to the character, because as much as this episode is very clearly a love letter to Batman.
Right.
They even go so far as casting Adam West as the Gray Ghost.
Oh, how did we not mention that yet?
Yeah. And everything that we're saying about watching the cartoon Batman is basically the writers saying to Adam West about watching the Adam West Batman,
Right, yeah.
So I think you have to use a character who is representative of where Batman came from.
Right. And it also, they did a good job creating a hero that already felt old. Like, they described the Gray Ghost, you don't need to know much about him before you can totally see how he would fit into Golden Age pulp comics. It's almost weird to think that he wasn't even around until recently. Like, that's how convincing he is.
Yeah.
And they needed that just to also, like, to play with the date a little bit too. Like, if Batman, first of all, Batman wouldn't be watching Superman cartoons because he fucking hates Superman, and it would totally delegitimize Batman. So yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this sentence.
Big question here, though.
Yeah.
Do they have a Gray Ghost action figure in that new line of Batman the Animated Series action figures they've been putting out? Because I want one real bad.
They've got to, man. They
have
a Batman figure from Justice League where he sang. You remember that episode where he sang?
I don't remember that episode.
I only saw it recently, but if you watch it, it's worth seeing just for the end, where Batman has to sing like an opera singer in order to somehow win the day. And everyone is stunned that Bruce has an immaculate singing voice. And that was such a moment that they decided to make an action figure. They made one out of Rosie Rocket, and she only showed up once, I think.
There's got to be.
A giant action figure of Rosie Rocket with a giant rocket that you only see once. But yeah, they have to.
I'm looking it up right now. Doesn't look like it, actually.
Well, that's coming. Guarantee it.
They've got one. They've got an older one.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, I've got that one unopened. Yeah. So while we're talking about nerdy things, this is a good segue into talking about the guy who works at the film warehouse.
Yep.
Kind of a critique there on comic book readers.
That guy's as much of a critique as the villain of the episode is a critique on the same types of people. Yes.
Totally. I mean, you almost expect him to have a ponytail and go, "Worst episode ever."
Yeah. Yeah.
They even went so far as to animate nose hairs inside of his nose. Did you see that?
Yep. Yeah.
They didn't give him one straw to his overpriced sugary beverage. They gave him two.
I did notice the two straws. Yeah.
And they animated acne. What the fuck do they think of us?
Yeah, it's that's an interesting. I don't know if that critique exists anymore. I think people might get offended if you did that now.
Well, yeah, because our friend Ricardo, who's apparently on Tinder all the time, managed to get laid no problem by talking about comics, something that you and I were never allowed to do.
Oh, boy. Born in the wrong time, right?
I know. Even now, I feel guilty. Like, when I'm at a coffee shop writing a script for Batman that is actually going to be published and maybe turned into a lot of things one day. Maybe that is a moment in history. maybe not. Regardless, I'm still embarrassed for people to look over and see me writing Batman on a computer.
Did a big guy in a Patriot shirt come over and knock the coffee out of your hand?
You know, if he did, I would have been on his side because I would deserve it. When I was young, that was the way to handle these things.
Just trying to sit there and write your Batman stories, not get shoved in a locker.
And I felt like leaning over. There was like these two girls next to me on some whatever meeting. And I'm like, just so you know, in case you glanced over here, like, I'm actually being paid to write Batman. This is not fanfic or anything like that. Like, I almost felt like describing to them that I wasn't actually a nerd.
Mm-hmm. That would not have worked.
I know, and I don't mean to like insult millennials who don't live in that world, but
or your wife.
No, she's just escaped millennials. I think she's born in 82 or 83. I think she might have just missed it. Anyway, but yeah, so you're right. The same thing with the Mad Bomber, who's
right.
voiced by Bruce Timm.
Right, and is that character and the film archive character are both based on the villain is based on Bruce Timm, the design-wise, and the other guy is based on Paul Dini.
Right.
Which apparently apparently Paul Dini was a much heavier man back then, and it wasn't until he saw himself animated on Tiny Toons that he decided that he was too fat and needed to lose weight.
But they still managed to catch him in his obese state a year or two later with this episode. Yeah. Also, I think he's had a lot of health problems lately. So.
Oh, really?
Let's Obesity is not a joke, obviously.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm glad that he's better now, but I just heard recently that I think he's fine, but there might have been some health problems and stuff over the years, which would kill me because he's one of our favorite Batman writers.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I first met Bruce Timm 6 years ago in San Diego, I remember trying to think of something to ask him about because I was trying hard not to geek out all over
That's
him.
the worst, isn't it? Isn't the worst trying to figure out what to say to these people?
Yeah.
It's the worst.
Because they know you know. They know that you know who they are. And they're waiting to see what kind of fan you're going to be. Are you going to play it cool? Are you going to geek out? Are you going to pretend that you don't know, even though they know you know?
Mm-hmm,
you know?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
What do you think?
I just know from experience that I've gone to many conventions in my early days where I've walked away from artist tables of people who I really admire going, what the fuck did I just say to those people?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I remember
I've done that.
The first time I met Tommy Lee Edwards, I could not think of a goddamn thing to say. I really, really, really wanted to talk to him because I loved his work and I really wanted to pick his brain. I could not think of a single thing to say. So I just kept looking at his stuff going like, is this acrylic? Yeah? This is cool. It's great, man. It's really good.
I did that to Bruce Timm because I'm like,
I'm sure I did it to you at least once earlier in the early days.
I don't. Well, if I remember, I'm never gonna bring it up. But I did it to Bruce Timm. I asked him about this episode, and I said, "Man, I love I love animated series. It really made me want to do this for a living. Not to go too deep into it, but." Grey Ghost, my favorite episode, and I gotta ask, was that you voicing the villain? And he was like, yeah. And Bruce can be kind of a cold guy. I'm sure I can be as well. Catch me at the wrong moment at a show, so it is what it is. But by all accounts, still very charming in other aspects. But he seemed a little miffed that I didn't think to look it up myself. But I was just like I knew the answer already. I was just trying to find something to talk about, basically.
Yeah.
But I've been on the other side of that from people before. Them wanting to unload but not sure which story to tell and trying to get them to get it all out. It's tricky. It's kind of fun too. There's like maybe 10 different types of people you see over and over when you have a line of people that want to get signatures.
Right.
You have like guy who's there for his girlfriend or for his friend who doesn't give a shit who you are.
Yep.
Or girlfriend. You've got a guy who loves you and is trying to think of the perfect thing to say that will be memorable, witty, but not take up too much of your time. People that are trying to joke around with you, but they do it too hard, where they end up insulting you. There's a lot of different types like that. It's kind of interesting.
I've had great conversations with people at shows when I'm tabling. I enjoy talking to people, and if you get the right people, they just. It's not that they can't take a hint, but they will just go. They will just go.
Yeah.
I had one of the more surreal ones I had was I was talking to a guy who must have been like 6'5", over 300 pounds, dressed like V from V for Vendetta.
Right.
Talking at me through his mask, telling me like in great detail, expanded detail about the later half of the Venom symbiote saga. Yeah. Because he was like, it was one of those things like, oh, have you read that? And I was like, no, I haven't read that one. He's like, oh, it's so great. And then he just talked about it for about 20 minutes. And it was one of the, I wasn't mad. It was just this is so surreal.
So what I started doing at some point was I stopped sitting all day at my table because you would inevitably get downtime. We all do. I've seen Leonard Nimoy sitting at his table with nothing to do at shows. It happens to everybody. But when that happens, you run the risk of someone coming by who might not even know who you are, who just wants to talk to somebody, So you get meandering V for Vendetta guy. When I sign now, I'll sign for a 2-hour window. So I've got a line of people waiting. Everyone's got 2 to 5 minutes, and they know the score. So you kind of cut down on meanderers, so to speak.
I will say, from a fan perspective, though, that's the best. That's what I'm looking for when I go to shows. Is I'm looking for that guy that I want to talk to who just happens to not have anybody around. The best
I know.
The best experience I ever had at a convention, it was the first show I ever went to. My friend and I from college went to the Big Apple Comic-Con, and specifically to talk to Bill Sienkiewicz. Mm-hmm. And we went there, and he didn't have a sign up on his table or anything. He was just there drawing by himself. Right. Nobody was there. We talked to him for 45. We didn't talk at him. We had a really great conversation with him. And it was awesome. Because he wasn't pressed because he was sketching or working on stuff. He wasn't signing. There wasn't a ton of people around. So we just got to talk to the guy, and it was awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I've had a similar experience with Sam Keith. So it was in 2006. Mm-hmm. I was still trying to get published, and he was at a show in Georgia. And after the show, I didn't get to see him, but he dragged his table out into the hallway after they closed the doors of the show to take care of the last few people that wanted sketches.
Oh,
and
that's
I think
awesome.
They were kids, so I think he's really good with kids. He loves drawing for kids or something like that. I hope that's true. I'm pretty sure that's what I saw. Anyway, I thought it was just some guy sketching, and then I noticed that he was drawing a lot like Sam Keith, and then someone whispered to me who it was, and I thought it was really awesome that he took the time to help these kids out, even though he didn't need to be there,
Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic.
But I love those experiences too, but I know a lot of pros hate those experiences.
Yeah.
They have very serious boundary issues.
Yeah,
how they're approached.
I did have one where I couldn't quite. I thought I had the game going in, but I couldn't quite bring it together. A couple years ago at Boston, Mike Mignola was actually there.
Yeah.
And I managed to catch him kind of before the show started, so there was nobody there.
Yeah.
And I thought I had the right ammo to talk to him, but I don't know if I just clammed up or whatever. But it wasn't awkward, but it was not as productive as I hoped it would be.
Yeah. I think Mike would even say he gets stiff sometimes.
Yeah, but I'm incredibly charming, so I don't know.
Oh yeah. You just ooze charm. No, you do. Actually, to your credit, I think that if I had to have someone hound me at the end of the day, I would have it be you, not some other jerk. But no, I was always.
So what kind of pen do you use when you draw?
The go away pen. Here, let me sign your forehead with it. So I was gonna say, going back to Mike real fast.
Yeah.
When I first met him, I wasn't sure what to make of him too, but I was so in love with his art, and he meant so much to me. I don't think I would have been satisfied with any thing he said or did, because I just had such a high bar of what I expected,
Yeah.
But then a couple years, 3 years ago, I can't remember. Oh, I wrote a blog about people who who sell merchandise of Batman or whatever at shows without permission.
Yep.
And I was saying how everyone could do what they want, but legally, it's very black and white. If these companies ever crack down and start handing cease and desists through Artist Alley, we're all fucked.
Oh, absolutely.
But no one was saying that, giving that information. People have a very incorrect understanding of what copyright law is, and it's so stupid because colleges aren't even teaching it. Anyway, so I wrote this blog, and comics is a big giant parade for everybody. So whenever you talk about serious comic issues, it's basically like you raining on their parade and farting in their faces.
Mm-hmm.
So people who read it, a lot of them agreed and got where I was coming from. Some people just didn't like that it was being perceived as negative, in other words. So I got a lot of shit on Twitter, and people were saying that I'm fear-mongering or whatever, and I was so disturbed by it that I talked to a friend of mine, John Arcudi, who's really close friends with Mignola, and he told me all these things about how Mike felt, and it was very much in line with how I felt. And he said, Mike follows your tweets and he agrees with you and he loves your stuff. And would it make you feel better if I had him give you a call? And I was like, okay. So
no, definitely don't have Mike Mignola call me.
So Mike calls me and we chat for like 2 hours, and such a nice guy. I mean, I don't know, what mood he was in when I first met him, but this is a different Mike completely, and he was awesome, and he was exactly the right type of like pat on the back I needed at the time by someone I really admired. And after I got off the phone, my next tweet, and I've been fighting off trolls on Twitter all day, I tweeted back at Mike and said, "Hey Mike, thanks for the call. I'm glad that you agree with my point on copyright." Suddenly all my trolls went away. Now that I'd gotten Mike Mignola to endorse me, they all fucking jumped off a bridge or something. So
yep.
I'll never forget that Mike did that for me, and I haven't actually spoken to him since. Sorry, long tangent.
Yeah, well,
so,
my addendum to my Mike Mignola story is after that initial meeting I had with him, the next day at the convention, he was in line behind me at 7-Eleven. So it was one of those things where I was like, I could turn. I'm not gonna. You know what? I'm just gonna buy this banana and go back to my table.
Yeah, dude, I've had people talk to me while I'm taking a piss.
Ooh, that's weird.
I've had people yell at me from escalators like 100 feet away asking if I wanted a coffee. Like strangers.
I saw the most awkward thing I've seen at a show recently was at New York this year, where WWE Hall of Famer $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase was in line for the bathroom, and there was 3 guys behind him very clearly talking about him, but not to him.
Uh-oh.
And he just was kind of like had to not engage them because they were like, "Hey man, $1 Million Man, blah blah blah," and like clearly he's doing his best to not turn around and say something. That stuff I can see.
Wait. Did they know he was standing there?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Did he like what he was hearing?
He was not reacting at all.
He might have been in that. Just let me take a piss.
I'm sure he was. Yeah, I mean, I felt bad for him.
Yeah.
That's an odd position to be in.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Great Ghost.
And for the record, when we tell stories about you and I signing, it's not to display ego. It's just to sort of paint the landscape of what it's like
absolutely.
out there. And I think these stories are really interesting and fun.
Yeah, I hope so.
So, Great Ghost.
So this one, do you want to talk about the music a little bit? I know you wanted to talk about. You've mentioned
Walker.
that in the past. Yeah, I think this one, right away, got me with the music because they give you a great theme song to the Grey Ghost. I thought it was really, really well put together.
So I was gonna look this up again before I talked about it, so I'm gonna get some of this wrong. But Shirley Walker, lady who did a lot of the music, she worked with Danny Elfman, I think, on some of the movie scores, and then he did the theme song for this, and then she kind of took over and did all these compositions, and it's classic, 50 people in a room recording like real music, no synthesizers or anything like that. Also, I think she was the first woman to do a lot of things at this time. Maybe next episode we can bring up her specific accolades because there is a great feminist story with her. Anyway, she did such a killer job with these one-off characters. Even like the theme song for the Batgirl character is amazing. This one's obviously really great. And I'm sad to say that she actually passed away.
Oh no, did she?
Yeah.
That's
she
really
was in her
sad.
60s. It was in the past 10 years, maybe sooner. Again, I wish I'd looked this up first, but yeah, a hell of a loss. And I think that her strongest composition, if you listen to the soundtrack to Mask of the Phantasm, she takes all this great music and turns it up a notch with like operatic singers and people going "oh" in the background, and it's really amazing stuff. And she's amazing. And I think she's the character of the show that people don't know is there, if that makes sense.
I definitely agree. I think I think you immediately think Danny Elfman when you hear the music in this show, but it's not until you really like sit down with it that you realize, oh wait, no, the theme song is Danny Elfman, but she's very clearly writing this great original music for the show.
She did the bulk of the work. I mean, I think he only did he basically did a cover song of his other shit from the movies,
right?
And then she had to work on this for the next 4 years, plus whatever she might have done for Justice League. I'm not sure if that was her.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to look that up. I don't know if she did that.
Right. It was definitely not her, I'm guessing, for Batman Beyond, who has music I fucking hate. Hey, you know what's dated now that'll still be dated the minute we release it? Electric guitars! How long whining solos. Wow! You know what I'm talking about, everybody? Shit's coming back.
What if all of our graphics are made with computers? Whoa!
Yeah. Anyway.
So actually, that brings me to another thing that I liked about this episode, and it's sort of a it's built into the world already, but it's given a nice starring role here. Is how there's nothing, and I guess it's indicative of the time period the show was made, but also the world that they've built is how nothing is digital in this episode.
Right.
You've got Bruce Wayne is looking for hard film. Mm-hmm. You know, all of this stuff is on film. There's no video. There's no, I guess there's video at the end, but there's no, I was thinking halfway through this episode wouldn't work now because all that shit would be on YouTube. So Batman wouldn't even need to talk to Simon Trent. You know, like it's because for me, I think I've said, I can't remember if I've said this on this podcast. I've definitely said it on The Prisoner or possibly Star Trek.
Right.
I think that analog technology is almost always a better storytelling device than anything digital.
Right.
Because it has a physical weight to it.
Right.
And it gets across storytelling in a way that, you know, having somebody punch something onto a computer screen just doesn't, you know? Like think of all the effort that they have to go to make interfaces interesting. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you have something on a tape or on a piece of film, like that in and of itself is already interesting for some reason.
Right.
I'm not sure why it is, but I've always found that to be true, where if you can go analog, you should go analog.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what I'm doing with my Batman. Like switches instead of buttons, reel to reel instead of digital. Yeah. Old school phones. No cell phone. Well, 1 or 2 cell phones, but you got to be careful with that stuff. You know.
Cell phones are a big one. Because,
they're like plot busters now.
Yeah, like the only movie I think I can remember that I've seen a cell phone used interestingly is
The Departed.
The Departed. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But yeah, like even what was it? Did you see It Follows?
Not yet.
No. So they set up this world that's very specifically supposed to be not of a specific time period.
Right.
It's very specifically not specific. So all the cars are older cars, the clothes are older, but it's kind of takes place in the present, but you know, the people still have tube televisions and stuff.
Yeah.
And there's one character who has an e-reader like phone thing, and it is so jarring. I thought it was incredibly jarring because everything else in the movie is so matte, for lack of a better term, and this was like a glossy shine.
Right. That
just does not fit in the kind of storytelling that they're trying. And but the
you got to be careful. Even like the in the cartoon itself, Bruce is watching on a black and white tube television.
Yep.
Which I know we've talked about before, but I love the analog and the insistence on analog in this. You know, even the remote control cars, something that people really don't play with anymore. And all the old toys that you saw, like the wind-up toys, all that stuff. Really great job.
There's I think it's a Korean movie that I remember seeing in college called Afterlife, and it takes place in this world that it's basically purgatory. So in order to cross over into heaven, you have to you have, I can't exactly remember what it is, but it's something like you have to pick a moment from your life that you want to relive for the rest of eternity.
Oh, that sounds familiar. Yeah.
And the people who can't figure out what they want to do end up working there. So what you do is you go in, and then once you pick your moment, they create this moment, and they do it like a video. It's not like a virtual reality holodeck kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like there's one character who the best part of his life was when he got to fly his plane. So that's what he wanted to relive. And so part of the movie is you're watching them shooting this movie to take into this afterlife where, they've got hard like theater set type backgrounds that they have to switch out, and they've got clouds that they have to make hang like out of cotton hanging from, like, there's a really tangible element to it that you just don't get if all of these videos were digital, or if it was virtual reality. It's something about the how tangible the media is really helps tell the story.
Totally, yeah, I absolutely agree. One of the other things I was going to say I loved about this episode, I don't know where else to say this. I love the animation on the cars, the car chase.
Yeah.
The movement of the camera. They keep the cameras at where the tires are because it's easier to keep track of your ellipses and animate them that way. Mm-hmm. Not to get too technical, but they did a really great job at that stuff, and explosions, and even color. Like when Batman is seeing these things explode at the beginning, like him and I think Gordon shows up. The only color is blue and orange. It's really jarring, but amazing.
I think I've said before in another episode, I think my favorite Batman is the fire sepia tone color Batman.
That's this episode.
Yeah.
Totally, yeah. There's a couple of shots where he's not gray and black. He's different shades of orange, basically, and it's awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I noticed that the animation team on this was from a more anime type of background.
Yeah, a little bit. Like the car races it has a little bit more anime feel to it.
And when he goes through the old book of actors, every other actor they look like Ronin warriors or like Speed Racer type characters.
Yep.
But and it's funny because you could see them trying to stay on model with the Bruce Timm model sheet, but they weren't quite getting it. But the colors were so beautiful and the animation was so awesome that it didn't matter.
Yeah.
We talked about anime and I didn't mention hentai. All right.
I mean, I don't know what else there is to say. There's another great example of Alfred being a dickhead where Bruce is telling him about the Grey Ghost, and Alfred very snobbishly tells him that he doesn't watch TV.
Oh, I prefer my fireplace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
what did you think about the end where Bruce gets his book signed by Trent?
I thought from the point of view of someone who would be behind the table signing books, that if someone said that to me as they were leaving, I wouldn't even give it a second thought. I wouldn't have that moment where I was like, hey, that's right, you're probably Batman. I'd probably just be like, yeah, that's great. It's great to meet you. I'm sorry, I gotta sign this now.
Well, so that when Trent goes, really? Was he just placating a fan, or did he just figure out who fucking Batman was?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, as a kid, I remember thinking that too. Like, wait, does he know who Bruce is? And Bruce is okay with that? Yeah. Well, what was the other part?
Bruce he has some weird people that he picks to tell his secret to. I've noticed.
Yeah. Yeah, it is weird. Oh man. Yeah, I love this episode, man. I can't talk about it enough. So, but
yeah, what would you draw if you had to pick something to draw?
Oh man, can you go first? I haven't thought about mine.
It's hard to pin down. I would just love to do anything with the Grey Ghost in it. Yeah. Frankly, it would be really cool to do a Grey Ghost black and white thing.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I like that. I think I'd say that too. Maybe him and the Grey Ghost and the Batmobile together. I will say, drawing shelves full of toys. Have you ever had to draw that?
A little bit, not extensively. One of the things I'm doing now, I have to draw a record store, so I've been putting a bunch of shit on the shelves and stuff. And
so knickknacks and stuff, right? Yeah, that stuff. Like I like that stuff to a point, but then it's exhausting. And to do it right, you have to take a lot of time, and you can go forever and ever adding Easter eggs and all that. But at some point, the panel has to get done. So I was gonna say them looking at Bruce Wayne's homage to Grey Ghost, but then I thought, do I want to draw a bunch of little toys? I just did it for my comic with the Joker collecting all these Batman toys, and I'm kind of burnt out on it now.
Yeah, that's. I think we have that as the Twitter banner heading image. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Did we decide to? Okay, that'd be awesome. Yeah, thank you.
I would also like to draw the person who has to file the paperwork for all the destruction that they caused while saving the library, because they're there. They show up to stop the toy guy from blowing up the library, but then they blow up at least 3 other buildings with those cars.
Right. Yeah. Oh no. The question of if you work in public service, if you're a mayor or deal with city financing, if you watch Batman at all, you can't help but think about who the hell is paying for all this collateral damage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the constant amount of fucking infrastructure that they're constantly rebuilding. I mean, Gotham City has got to be gridlock traffic all the time because thank you fucking Batman.
That would be a great short to do, is 2 people stuck in traffic because Batman blew up a bridge.
I in my story I bring this up. I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep talking about my book, but
are you drawing Batman?
One of the things that Joker uses to turn Gotham against Batman is he just adds up the amount of destruction caused, the amount of man hours spent in traffic, the amount of times you were late to work or missing your kid's recital because fucking Batman blew up the bridge again. Mm-hmm. And he, not surprisingly, he gets a lot of traction.
Yeah. Well, we've seen how playing to that base can really. Oh yeah. I'm not gonna get political, but no. Jesus Christ.
I know. Well, that's the thing, is I think that my writing is taking on a lot of Trump fear, and it's kind of filtering through to Joker, but in a more productive way than it will for Trump, hopefully.
Yeah.
Or actually, no, I'd rather have Trump do it right.
Yeah, I know.
And not me for a stupid Batman book.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's bringing real life problems into the Batman show is probably where we should end.
Yeah. God, we had so many tangents from hentai to Trump to Mike Mignola's loving phone call.
I wonder if Mike Mignola's ever drawn hentai.
Pause. I did see him draw tentacles once.
He loves the tentacles. He loves tentacles.
Well,
yeah.
He's good at he draws the alien tail very well.
Yep.
From Aliens, that's kind of a tentacle.
Well, I mean, he's big into the Lovecraft monsters, which is all tentacles and stuff.
Oh, yeah,
he does a lot of Hellboy stuff with tentacles, yeah.
That's right. Maybe Mike Mignola can explain to me why hentai is handled so carefully.
Well, he did just end Hellboy, so who knows? He could be changing careers. I don't know. So, if you want to give this one a rating, what would you say?
Oh, easy 5. This is the high mark for the series, I think.
Yeah. I think I'm also going to give it a 5. I think this is not as good an episode as Heart of Ice. I think Heart of Ice is a better written episode, personally. Mm-hmm. If you take away the nostalgia from this one and actually just look at it kind of objectively, I shouldn't say objectively, but as objectively as you can, I think there's a little bit more meat on the bone with Heart of Ice, but this is definitely a 5 for me as well.
Yeah. All right, we'll go. Yeah, you're right. I think Heart of Ice. I probably used the phrase high watermark already on that one. Oh well.
Whatever. Water goes up and down all the time.
Yeah. Anyway, I hope people don't mind our the side roads that we take during these podcasts, the amount of times we get distracted.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, at least it keeps things interesting. And I mean, if they're interested in hearing us talk about this from the point of view that we have, then hopefully it is interesting. So.
Right. And honestly, when I get into podcasting, I don't get to talk about the time Mike Mignola called me. I don't get to do that stuff. You know, and I'd rather talk about those stories than explain again which college I went to and how I got my start, you know?
Yeah. So what sort of brush do you use when you ink?
Oh, the up your ass brush.
Yes. Man, I know that one very well.
I've got one if you want to borrow it. I mean, you can keep it.
All right, that's going to do it for the Badass Podcast. Next time, we will be back with... Okay, I think we're going to change up the order here. So next time, we're going to do Feet of Clay Part 1 and Part 2.
Did you say...
Because we've got a single and then Feet of Clay. So I think we're going to change and go Feet of Clay.
Nice.
And then the
Nice.
following episode, we'll do Prophecy of Doom and Joker's Favor.
All right. This is
Alrighty.
Sean Murphy and Brush Up Your Ass Clay McCormack.
Just trying to figure out how to get it out. That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah, so if you like this, give us a rating review on iTunes. That would be great. And we will see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.